So currently I'm a graduate student, and one of the degrees that I'm pursuing is a Master's of Divinity, so the study of religion. And I could be honest with you and tell you that my future career is not being a pastor or being a preacher. And when I tell that to people who ask me what I'm studying, the response that I get is, so then why are you studying that? And my response is, well, that's a good question. But what I've found is that the study of religion has been fruitful in my life. What I've learned is that religion is purposed in uplifting. We see that vividly in the pastors that preach on Sundays. We see it vividly through other ways as well. But a sermon is not just a Sunday preaching. A sermon is also something that takes different forms, like the businessman who gives of his hard-earned money towards causes in the community, or the community organizer who gives of their time to invest in transforming the community that he lives in, or the teacher who lays down their life. And trust me, sometimes in the classroom it actually feels like you're laying down your life to empower students. All of these moments are examples of sermons. They're a moment in which hope is transferred from one individual to another. Now, I stand here humbly as a student, as an educator, and also as a member of this wonderful community. And I think it's only fitting that I share a meaningful story about my life, or a meaningful story that has impacted my life. And that is the story of David and Goliath. Now, a lot of us are familiar with the story of David and Goliath from the Sunday school rendition of it, but I have a different perspective of it. For me, the moral of the story of David and Goliath is that technology is cool. All right? And this is how. We see this little guy in David with this big problem, Goliath. And in his hands is a piece of technology, a sling. And he uses that sling to take care of the big problem that he's facing. Now, this story overlaid on the education system shows how meaningful the classroom is to people in need. What we see is that education, the classroom specifically, is a symbol of hope. And this symbol of hope crosses all social classes. It's considered to be the great equalizer. And for students who are experiencing poverty, this symbol means that no matter how enmeshed you are in the grip of poverty, you can overcome, you could escape. All you have to do is work hard and study. Now, that's a truth, but there's systemic barriers that these students face, the students who are the most vulnerable in society. The first off is that education is built on attainment and achievement. That means that there are winners and there are losers. And the majority of the time, those who lose have a similar background. They're a certain race, they're from a certain place, they're foreigners. And it's broken down so much into that we can tell which students will achieve highly just based on what they eat, even based on what they don't eat. And in addition, this desk is further politicized. We see that students are overwhelmed with the pressures to perform highly on standardized tests. They're asked to get good grades, and not only that, be on good behavior and be in school every day of the week. This is furthered in that struggling schools use students and their performance and their attendance to determine who gets hired, to determine the amount of funding that they get from the state and the federal government. The bottom line is this, is that students who are most in need, just to have the hope of being on the same level of students who are advantaged, need more resources. And for the most part, that doesn't happen. Resources get directed elsewhere. And the result is that the avenues in which families and students have to escape poverty are becoming smaller and smaller. So this talk is a call to action for every educator in the room, for them to understand that it's our responsibility to equip students with the sling that is going to take care of the systemic problems that they face in the classroom and outside of the classroom. There are large barriers, but technology can be a possible solution. Now, this reminds me of a story that I experienced. I'll never forget when I got the acceptance letter to UC Berkeley. It's one of the greatest moments of my life. And in this moment, I'm never going to forget that I shared it with my mom. It was a prestigious school. I never thought I would get in, and when I told my mom, she cried. She said, "Son, you're on the same level as the children of millionaires. You made it." And this is the woman who raised me as a single mother and who struggled to make ends meet. And when I went to school, as much as I wanted to believe that, I realized that it wasn't true. You see, if a millionaire's son fell out of college, they'd have a safety net. But if I failed out of college, I wouldn't have one. And that hurt me. I didn't understand why one was privileged over the other. But my perspective changed when I stepped into my first computer science course. The professor stepped into an auditorium about this size, and he said this after introducing himself. He said, "Never before in history has the opportunity to attain wealth been more easily available as it is today. You could be poor, learn how to code, and make six figures. It's unprecedented." And that changed my perspective. That changed my perspective a lot. What I realized is that in order to create my own safety net, I'd have to learn a marketable skill. And that wasn't enough. I also wanted to teach that skill so that students who grew up in a similar predicament as mine would have the opportunity to make their own safety nets. Because I'm a firm believer that if students do not have access to the essential 21st century technological skills that offer opportunities to earn, poverty will be exacerbated not only in the country, but also in the Central Valley and in Modesto. So I left with a newfound passion. The TEDx program was built, and I found a passion teaching students about computer science. For me, technology is the ultimate sermon to the classroom. It's an uplifting message to those who are in need, that through the beautiful dance of tech and education, possibilities become endless, and the giants that we face become small. What I also realize is that in the face of systemic problems, poor performing schools, poverty, technology has the opportunity to equip students to overcome. And I believe that my personal life is an example of that. Technology equipped me from living in a trailer on the worst street in the city to going to Harvard University. That is the power of equipping students with the sling, and that's the opportunity that they have to slay the giants in their lives. So I'd like to encourage every educator, implement technology into the classroom. Have fun, experiment, trial and error. Try to learn alongside your students. For every parent, bring tech into the household, because some of the best lessons of life are learned at the dinner table and in the living room. So in closing, I truly believe that technology in the hands of poor students, those who are experiencing poverty, parallels the sling in David's hand. And just as David was able to defeat Goliath, I believe that students who live in our communities, live in our state, and live around the country and around the world who experience poverty can use that same technology, that sling, to slay the systemic problems in the education sector, but also in society. Thank you.